Yeah, life. I keep hearing people tell me that it's so precious. And I would agree with that on a purely technical front. It is. It's precious in a very cold, practical sense. You know, it's precious in the sense that it's undeniably incredibly finite. You know, if you're going by, like I said, the technical definition of precious, just like how a gem is precious because it's very rare. Well, technically, apparently diamonds are actually mass produced, and there's it's a very false preciousness when it comes to diamonds. So, but whatever, that's beyond the point. So yeah, in that regard, life is very precious because it's incredibly finite and incredibly fleeting, and without it, you don't have anything else really, at least in this realm. And so I would agree with that sentiment. But then beyond that, that's when people kind of start to lose me a lot. Um, like people a lot of times want to say that life is precious in the regard that, you've got to make the most of your brief time on this earth. And, don't take anything for granted and stuff like that. And then also there's the insinuation that its preciousness means that it's automatically like a gift in some way. And I don't know. I've tried to get on that side of thinking, but there's just always that's just something that's just stuck in my craw, for lack of a better word, about that. Stuck in my craw in a bad fucking way. I just can't digest it properly. And well, for starters, like this whole notion that your finite time on this earth suddenly makes life more valuable. I mean, yeah, but the reason it makes it more valuable is a pretty negative one, in my opinion. And it's actually kind of a testament to sort of the fundamental flaw in our existence. And it's that the finite nature of life gives life its value, but that's only because if you live for eternity, you'd realize just what an existential nightmare life actually is. um, I mean, that's why like it's always been a not always, but it's been an occasionally explored notion, the notion of being stricken with immortality, um, like true immortality, and just exploring what that would actually mean for the human mind to live forever. And a lot of times, like when that is explored, there's always a limitation to it because people just either don't want to bother exploring the full extent of it, or even more so, just you can't really explore the full extent of it because living forever is just such an insanely inconceivable notion that you can only go so far. Like, it's almost like trying to map out all the numbers of pi. You can only get to a certain point when you just have to kind of call it quits and be like, okay, what am I just going to keep doing this forever? Speaking of forever, and yeah, you would just keep doing it forever. I mean, somebody just to put a notion of forever, like I could right now stop doing this video and just start writing a story about a guy who lived forever and what he experienced, and I would just keep writing that story until the day I fucking die. And this is assuming I die at like the ripe old age of 90 or whatever the fuck. And that story would just be an absolute millisecond of a millisecond in the grand scheme of the person's life who lives forever. Even if I was doing tons of abbreviations, if I was even leaping, many years throughout the story of this person's life who lived forever, I could be leaping trillions of years at multiple points throughout this story, just making like just brief little paragraphs of, little excerpts between trillions of years of progression of time, and it wouldn't scratch the surface of this individual's existence because they would just keep going and going and going. Time would just not even have meaning for this entity, and that's just how long forever is. And it's sort of commonly like thought of that being stricken with true immortality, at least with a mortal mind, would be a horrible existential nightmare. Because at a certain point, you would just do everything that can be done. You would think every thought. You would, yeah, you would just have experienced every possible thing. You would be so bored of things that it wouldn't even just be like, it would be like an existentially, like, of course existential, but it would be like a literal hell tier degree of boredom. Like boredom that is beyond comprehension. You know? Like it wouldn't be just like, I'm kind of bored. No, it's like a type of boredom that the human mind just can't wrap its mind around. Um, like okay, here's actually a great example of I think of a narrative that I think did do a good job of really capturing the horror of just eternity. And that is there's this like Stephen King short novel called The Jaunt. Not short novel, sorry, short story called The Jaunt. And essentially, just to kind of cut to the point of it, it's if I remember correctly, it's like there's sort of been like not teleportation, sorry, um, interstellar like no, sorry, it is teleportation. It is teleportation. Has been like invented in the far future. But the catch is every time people are getting like transported through this form of like teleportation, it gets them, all across the galaxy. I think it's like through wormholes or something like that. They basically have to kind of knock them out with sort of like sleeping gas. And they have said that the reason why they have to do that is they were doing some like tests before that, and they would send like convicts and shit like that as test subjects early on in the experimentation. And every time they went through this sort of teleportation portal while not being knocked out, they would like go out the other side absolutely fucking insane, like completely insane, like beyond comprehension of regular insane. And so it's just like ever since then they've had to knock people out. And when they go through the teleporter after they get knocked out, it's fine. They go to sleep, they wake up, and they're like in another totally different part of the universe. But then there's like a kid who's with a family, and he's curious as to what they experience. These people who have had the misfortune of being awake during this teleportation. This kid is morbidly curious for some stupid reason, but he's a kid. Kids can be very stupid. And so he basically like holds his breath when they're getting knocked out, goes through the teleportation, awake, pops out the other side, and much to the horror of his parents, is gone completely batshit insane and is just is like tearing his own eyes out and just constantly saying like it's longer than you think, it's longer than you think, and it kind of like just ends there. I might be butchering a few details in the novel, but short story, but it doesn't really fucking matter. The point is, I mean, there's on the one hand, there is like the aspect of like who knows what kind of unknown cosmological horrors this kid experienced in this weird cosmic wormhole or whatever the fuck. But the other aspect is the fact that it's like he said, he's not talking about like the horror specifically. He's saying it's longer than you think. So there was something he experienced. And it wasn't just what he experienced, but it was the fact that it just went on and on and on and on and on. I mean, for all that you could know, he might have just been in a void the entire time. He might not have even like seen any like fucking horrible eldritch cosmic entities. He could have just been in the abyss. And just what a horrible nightmare that notion is, to be just trapped in an endless abyss. To be exposed to anything forever is a horrible nightmare, but especially just nothingness. To be consciously awake in just a dark, empty void for an eternity is one of the most absolutely gut-wrenching notions to the human mind. And if it isn't, you really haven't contemplated it well enough. I mean, just imagine being in like an inescapable sensory deprivation chamber on steroids, just forever. Nothing, just going on and on and on, time ceasing to exist, your brain just devouring itself in a sea of just absolute fucking self-consuming madness, you know. It's just inconceivable. But again, the reason I'm blabbering on about this shit is it just goes to show that, like, we would have some variation of this if we lived forever. There would reach a point, or if any one individual of us more specifically lived forever, there would reach a point where we would basically be in the mental equivalent of being stuck in that abyss. You know, let's just say we lived forever, but the universe kept going on its own accord, and eventually there'd be the heat death of the universe and everything would perish, and then we would just be stuck in a fucking void. Just darkness, unless, like, the universe resets itself. Who knows if that's possible or not. But that's even beyond the point, because let's just say, like, at a certain point, even if things kept going the way they are going, and let's say the universe reset itself and there was just cosmological variance constantly, just being conscious in one continuous mind for eternity, just constantly, you would eventually reach a point probably where everything would, like I said, become so unfathomably dull and rote to you. Like, you would experience every possible experience, every iteration, think every thought, that it would almost be the equivalent of, like, being stuck in a void, because reality would just feel like a void to you at that point. Nothing would have any novelty to it. Nothing would have any purpose to it anymore. It would just be white noise, because you would just not even register it anymore. It would be like, I imagine it would be like the sensation one gets when they're, like, watching a TV show or playing a video game that they're just really tired of and just are kind of zoning out during, and it almost just becomes kind of like, you know, you're just kind of going through the motions and it becomes kind of like a background haze, and, you know, maybe you're putting inputs into it, like with a video game, and kind of doing stuff, but you feel no actual emotional resonance with it. You're only kind of like passively contemplating what's going on, but it's all just so gray, and you're basically just processing it like on a purely mechanical level just to get through it, if that makes sense. This would be that, but like times infinity, essentially. And so this entity who would have to live forever would just, at one point, would probably just stop even bothering, I would imagine. Would just realize that, like, it's all just nothing. It's all just meaninglessness. It's all just, like, they would have basically seen the universe reset itself, like, well, like an infinite number of times, if that is what happens. If it isn't just ending with a void, if this isn't our only shot at a universe, if the universe does constantly reignite itself after every conclusion, they would have experienced the universe from its beginning to its end an infinite number of times. It would continue to keep doing so forever. And they would have seen people going through the same motions, the same behaviors, even other completely different, like, alien life forms, possibly, instead of humans. They would have seen them gone through every possible iteration they could go through, every type of behavior they could have gone through, every variance of, like, history they could have had, just all those behaviors so much, and that it would just cease to fucking mean anything anymore to that entity. And so it would just be nonsense. It would be, like I said, it would be like being forced, it would feel as dull as having to play the same video game just endlessly, over and 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 over again, and then never getting a break from it. You would just have to keep doing it, and it would never stop. It would never stop. It would never stop. It wouldn't be like you have to play the same video game over and over again 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times or 1,000,000,000 times. It would just keep fucking going and going and going. And, like, I don't know, I'm just getting to the point here that, like, I imagine at some point the only chance they could possibly have at reaching some sort of peace in the universe is just maybe meditating to the point that they almost enter, like, a plant-like state of existence, where they just realize that, like, the only true solace one can have in the chaotic nonsense of life would just be basically sheer existence in a state of quasi-nothingness. You know, like, if they can't actually experience oblivion because they're living forever, they could just basically experience the Zen-like state of oblivion, where they're aware but seek no longer any types of sensory uh, pursuits, any kind of anything, any like no sensory pursuits, no interpersonal connections anymore, no knowledge seeking, nothing. They've just realized that it's all bullshit, and the only true comfort in eternity is just embracing the eternity of basically nothingness, of just stillness, of just like essentially being a plant. They would probably just sit and just meditate endlessly and just embrace the constant soothing stability of just nothing, or close to nothing. You know, if that makes any sense. I don't know if this entire esoteric rambling resonated with anybody, but I was just trying to kind of parse my thoughts out about why I find this notion of how life is precious to be just a really tragic notion, actually, and not something that I find to be very bittersweet. I just think it's bitter. And yeah, to go back to that notion, because I kind of went off the rails here with this craziness, it just makes me sad to think that the preciousness of life is very contrived. And again, it's only valuable because the alternative would be the insanity of eternity, the insanity of immortality. So we have to be stricken with, I guess, the lesser of two evils, which is a finite existence, because our minds would go fucking absolutely insane if we didn't have a finite, precious life. So it doesn't add a beauty to life, it just adds a necessary evil to combat the greater evil of existential fucking insanity. And I don't know. I don't think that's a beautiful thing. I think it's actually horrifying. I think it's one of the most horrifying aspects of our existence, that there really is no definitive answer to the horrible question of what is the optimal existence, because there really isn't not any. Barring the only exception I can think of. This is the only way I could possibly see that like existence could prevent itself from being an absolute nightmare hellscape. And that is, well, there is one version. I mean, it could obviously be that, when you just have this silly little cosmological blip accident of a life, and that's it, and then you just die and cease to exist, because at that point it's just irrelevant, really, because you won't even have a brain to comprehend anything, let alone, the existentialism period, let alone the existential notion of eternal thought and eternal awareness. But the other alternative is, like, let's say, the only alternative I could think of where a non-perma-death existence would actually be alright would just be, I guess, reincarnation. Having your memory wiped away every time you die, so that things have the illusion of novelty to them in the next lifespan. Which is also kind of sad in its own regard. The fact that, like, we would have to basically live in an existence where we sporadically get our memories wiped and just pretend that things that we've experienced an infinite number of times before are in fact new and original and actually discoveries, when we've discovered that shit so many times before, and we're basically just tricking ourselves into thinking that they're new discoveries to prevent ourselves from going fucking insane, essentially. So I guess, like, kind of the point of what this video is so far is I've just realized, like, existence is just a fucking nightmare, pretty much any way you put it. But at the same time, like, oblivion sucks too. There's some people that argue that it's a better alternative. There's people that are just like, I've heard that a lot of times, especially in some of the kind of more doomer channels I kind of check out, kind of out of curiosity. A lot of them just constantly talk about how, like, they're looking forward to, like, dying. I mean, they have the assumption that death is just the end, but they look forward to that, the getting to finally cut out of this life and enjoy the respite of oblivion, or they often lament being born in the first place and wish they could have just been in oblivion. Which on the one hand, I kind of get it, but then, I don't know, I'm never able to be totally comfortable with the notion of oblivion, because that always makes me realize, like, yes, oblivion means that you wouldn't experience all the bad that comes with existence, but it would also mean you don't get to experience any of the good. Like, I wouldn't like any of it. Any of it, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I think life is fucked up. I mean, I just went on about how fucked up existence is, but I don't know if I'm comfortable to say that the extreme opposite is really what I'd want either. So, God, this video really is insane. Um, I guess what my point is, like, if I was a god, if I could determine, or if I was the god, I guess, and I could determine whatever fabric of reality would be the most optimal to me, I don't really know what I'd say is comfortably the answer. I guess I would have to just go with the notion of, God, I'm just itching my back so much, sorry. With the notion of just that kind of, temporary, like occasional amnesia shit. I think I would get rid of death, because fuck death, and get rid of this whole notion of like reincarnation and stuff, if that is a thing. Like, I don't want to get like, I don't want to like, I mean, I have issues with myself, but I don't want to like take a roll of the dice and become someone or something else after I die. That fucking sucks. Like, what if I just come back as like, I don't know, like as fucking like Russell Brand? Ugh. I don't know why I said Russell Brand, but I think I'm just thinking of that just because he's like on the news today. He's getting prosecuted, which, fair enough, good riddance. But yeah, I know, yeah, he's got tons of money and he was successful. But dude, like, what a pathetic piece of shit to fucking reincarnate into Russell Brand. Ugh. Or like just, something even sadder than that. He didn't even have like the money or the fame or the fans. Like just some fucking like absolute just sad, horribly just broken person with like nothing in their life, like, just never have any real friends, no talents, just lives a absolute just fucking shit life where they just like excruciatingly boring life where they just, live a boring job that crushes their soul and they just don't do anything worth a fuck. Like, God, like, ugh. So, or, obviously there's always, no, you know what? People always say like, oh, but what about getting reincarnated as like a cockroach? And it's like, you know what? I think I'll take a cockroach over having to be somebody who just lives a completely anonymous, throwaway, wage slave life with absolutely no novelty to it. That genuinely sounds like one of the most hellish existence. Or, in a more dramatic way, like, yeah, just being born into a war zone or something like that, like, being born as like some kid whose parents both get blown up by a bomb or something when they're like young and shit, and they like have to just live like a fucking miserable ass life with like being orphaned and stuff like that. Like, that's fucking horrible. Yeah, like that's the horror of fucking reincarnation right there. I mean, they always say it's based on your karma, but like, I don't know. I mean, I already don't really necessarily believe all that much in free will, so I kind of feel like a lot of times when people like generate bad karma, that's just shit. That shit's just like almost predetermined. They just kind of came out already fucked to begin with, so they were gonna turn out to be like somebody who generates bad karma because of just their birth circumstances and their fucked up brain and stuff like that. So is that even like legitimate? Like, I don't really know that. I mean, okay, maybe there is free will, but if there is, I think it's incredibly limited. So, I mean, I do think there is to some degree, but it's very restrictive. It's very restrictive. I don't know. I think it comes a lot of times with like self-awareness. I think the level of self-awareness one has is the amount of free will they're kind of able to exercise. But even when somebody's very self-aware, like I do consider myself to be a pretty self-aware person, I don't exercise my free will nearly enough. I'm so often a slave to like my brain and my instincts and yeah, okay, I feel like this is going into a wholly different subject matter. But yeah, I don't know. I just think my point still stands that like the best I could do if I were like the god of the universe would be like, yeah, we're getting rid of death. You don't have to worry about like a notion of reincarnation or something to add novelty to life. But every, once in a while, you're going to have to just basically like wipe your memories to make you enjoy this existence again, because at a certain point, it's just going to get boring. And that's the only way to enjoy things, is just erase your memory of them and make them fun again. Either that or like maybe the other alternative, and maybe this would be the one way to make existence actually happy, is like rewire our brains in such a way that like we don't care about novelty anymore. So maybe that's the way that actually existence could be like in paradise, is just like, yeah, sure, we've experienced the same shit like zillions of times before. We've thought every thought zillions of times before, but who cares? We're fine with that. We don't need to have new shit. We can just keep experiencing the same thing over and over again and never get bored of it. So that would probably be the paradise existence. We just have to fundamentally have different brains, though. Um, but yeah, I mean, as it stands, as our human consciousness stands, that just isn't the case. We are not wired to be that way, and that's why the whole preciousness of life is fucked up. Um, and then yeah, I don't know. As like a last point. I mean, the reason I even brought this up, and this is maybe kind of, I don't know, maybe this is gonna sound insensitive, but I do say this just because it made me sad. Is yeah, I was watching a video of a guy who has ALS, and he's basically dying from it, and I just came across that video just randomly like earlier this morning, and he was talking about like the preciousness of life and stuff like that. And again, I feel like this whole rant I had before just sounded me like it's just me being like almost like a philosophical asshole. But I did not mean all that I said was like as like a like I wasn't trying to say this as like a contrarian dick move to this like poor guy who I genuinely my heart goes out to the guy. It actually made me really fucking sad watching that video. Um, but more so, he was talking about how, and in this case, I will actually agree with him. He was just talking about, you know, that commonly held notion that a lot of people have when they're on their deathbed about how you know, he just regrets not reaching out to more people, you know, regrets not doing certain chances and stuff, taking certain chances and stuff in life. But he was more so talking about just like reaching out to certain people, you know, the whole thing of like, oh, we always have more time, we always have tomorrow. And again, this is a very common sentiment that a lot of people say, you know, not just people with terminal illness, but just people who just get old and they just think about that. It's like universally thought about. And I mean, I definitely agree with that. I can see with that. I mean, even after my whole spiel about the existential horror of existence, I'm not a complete, you know, I'm not a completely like mind-fucked lunatic about reality. You know, I kind of realize at a certain point, if you just keep going down that rabbit hole, you're going to drive yourself fucking insane. So I just have to tone it down and just like let myself, you know, just buy into like normalcy a little bit, buy into being like, okay, let me just think normally about stuff and not constantly go down a rabbit hole of like, what would it be like to exist forever and ever and ever and bring it to an insane, you know, conclusion. Um, but yeah, so thinking in a more normal mindset, I agree with them on that, and I would add to that this just to add to that rather than just regurgitating what people like this kind of say about, you know, life and regrets at the end of it. I find it very annoying that it's only when people have like terminal illnesses that they can behave in the manner that, you know, is typically associated with somebody with the terminal illness. And like what I mean by that is like I wish that it was more socially acceptable for everybody to behave like they had a terminal illness, because the truth is we do. Like it's very strange to me that it's like it's only when it comes down to somebody having like an actual diagnosis of like stage 4 cancer or like ALS or, you know, stuff like that, then people, you know, are given that, both given that new insight but also given more of like a free pass on doing kind of more radical stuff to a certain degree. You know, like it's kind of like there's a certain type of behavior that is more accepted and associated with somebody that's got like a terminal illness. Like they're able to just be more authentic, be able to, you know, reach out more. People are more likely to kind of take them more seriously, and want to like maybe, you know, reach back to the reaching out and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like they'll like it puts things more in perspective and stuff, and they're like, you know, more likely to do like risk taking stuff beyond just reaching out to other people, and that's just viewed generally more acceptable. But I don't feel like that gets extended to people that are just like in a normal state, and I don't understand why. Because again, we all are terminally ill. It's time. Like time is the common terminal illness we have. Like I feel like people almost on like a weird emotional level think that like their emotions almost make it seem to them that they're like immortal, like even though they know they're not, cognitively speaking, emotionally, like they almost feel like they're immortal, and then when they hear about somebody who gets like a terminal illness, a terminal diagnosis, they're suddenly like, oh my god, that poor person, they're gonna die now. And I'm like, I get it on one hand. Like, I obviously have a lot of sympathy for somebody who has like a fucking terminal illness. I'm not downplaying that. I just think it's weird that there's this like level of like disconnect where they like they act like they're so different from the person with terminal illness. And I'm like, dude, time is coming for you too. You're not like above this. I mean, for all you know, you could die before the fucking person with terminal illness does. You could. You easily could. And I don't know. I'm so sick of that, like this attitude of like we just have all the time in the world, barring having a terminal illness. And it's like, no, we don't. We really fucking don't. And this happens a lot of times. I'll talk to people about this where like I'll just point out like, you know, just how short. Why is my fucking nose so itchy? Jesus Christ. I'll like point out just like how finite my life is and how finite their life is. And how like, you know, and a lot of times people like just assume like, oh, when you get old, when I get old, da 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 da. And I'm like, you don't fucking know if you're gonna get old or not. You really don't, and I don't either. And when I point that out, people like will like say like you're negative or something like that, or like, oh, but you know, you don't have to worry about death yet. Like that's like a thing in the future. That's for future you. And I'm like, you don't know that. You don't fucking know that at all. And even if it is, the future's not that far away. I mean, I was talking to my friend today earlier, and I was reminiscing on the fact that like, holy shit, like I was a kid like yesterday. And I was just thinking about that. I'm like, holy fuck, I'm already 33 years old? Like, Jesus fucking Christ, I'm gonna blink my eyes and be 66 soon. And again, this ain't an original observation. I'm just like feeling it a lot today. I'm like, yeah, holy shit, life is short. It is short as shit. I mean, that just adds to the fact that like, yeah, I am terminally ill. I'm terminally ill with fucking time, and it's going by quickly. And it's going by quickly for all of us. I don't know anybody out here who with a straight face can say that time is like incredibly long. I mean, maybe it is in a moment when you're experiencing maybe some boring ass shit that you can't wait to end. But when it ends, it's gone. It's forever gone. And it's just going to keep pushing forward that time. And in the grand scheme of like every day that goes by, it is just your bank account of time is getting lower and lower, you know? Again, this is nothing that's original here, maybe except for the fact that I just don't understand why more people don't have like the terminal illness attitude. That's maybe my original contribution to the whole lamentations of the fleeting passage of time. But I don't know. It's just also strange to me how in denial people are about the inevitability of their fucking mortality until it like smacks them right in the fucking face with a terminal illness. And I'm like, dude, you are not that different. You're gonna fucking die. Why the fuck do we keep acting like we're like, I don't know. Like we're just, we just play it so fucking safe. We just keep playing it so fucking safe. And yeah, you know what? Maybe I am fucking projecting here. I definitely am projecting here a bit. I'm playing it fucking safe. I'm trying not to, but it's like, it's a fucking awful habit. And it's just been instilled in me by just, like, fucking society, man. Like, but it is. It's so weird. It's so fucking weird. It's just, I don't know. It's so strange how just, like, this modern society we live in just instills this, in my opinion, totally irrational sense of just, like, the worship of safety and stability when it's just a temporary convenience that's constantly in threat of slipping away and will eventually inescapably slip away. And we're just like so fucking bred to be safe and stable, safe and stable, safe and stable, and just I don't know if this is making sense, but God, it just drives me fucking crazy. Like, it just really fucking drives me crazy. Just the fucking safety obsession, the safety obsession, the safety obsession. We're all dying. We're all fucking dying. And I don't know. We're all dying and life is an existential nightmare and everything is pointless anyway. So maybe who the fuck cares anyways, honestly. Maybe fuck it. Maybe just play it safe while you can and pretend that death isn't coming for you, and maybe that is the best way to live, because ultimately there is no fucking point to anything, and there is no best way, or like maybe, I mean, honestly, there's bad things about living a risky fucking crazy life too. So what the fuck do I know? I'm just a fucking dumbass weirdo babbling to myself in a microphone, having an existential crisis. I'm always having a fucking existential crisis. I am just one walking existential crisis. I always will be, probably until the day I fucking die, which is gonna be soon, like it is for you. Holy shit. Okay, that was, I don't know what that was, but I don't know if I made a point, but I made a video. I did that. I definitely made a video, and I think maybe my longest one today. No, I did one that was 40 minutes, but I think this one was better than the 40-minute one. That 40-minute one was like unwatchable. Maybe this is unwatchable too. I don't know. God, why do I always have like a questioning existential crisis within an existential crisis at the end of these videos where I just doubt myself verbally on camera? I need to stop this. It's getting old. Oh, getting old. Getting played out. Like everything gets old and played out in the end. Alright, I'm done. That's my rant for today. Take it or fucking leave it. I don't know. I don't even know what the fucking point of me ranting that was. I'm probably going to play it safe tomorrow anyways. No, I'm not. I'm going to do something different tomorrow. I don't know what. Actually, I kind of know what. Whatever. That's for tomorrow me to worry about. I'm today me for not very much longer because it's late as fuck. I'm done. That's it. That's my video for today. Be well. And you're going to die one day. Very soon. So just do with that as you will. Pretend that you have a terminal illness is what my point is. And see how that affects you. Maybe that does make you just want to keep living life the same way you do, which is a completely valid thing. I just think don't delude yourself that you're immortal. You know, don't listen to that emotional part of your brain that makes you think you got a fuckload of time and that you're fundamentally so much time that you might as well be immortal, because you are not. You are fragile as fuck, and you're gonna be dead way sooner than you think. And again, not an original thought, but I definitely thought I should regurgitate it because it's fucking true. I'm done now. For sure, I'm definitely done. Bye-bye.